Well, I've been playing around, doing some experimenting. I was trying to find new ways or better ways or alternative ways of doing things. And I think I may have come across a fairly plausible hack to improve success with broadcasting food plot seed. Just try to be more connected with your environment. Try to be more connected with your food. You can see behind me, I've got a food plot here. This is basically my backyard because you can probably hear the chickens, the rooster crowing in the background. But this is a broadcastable plot. I don't bring a drill in here. It's not very feasible for me to hire someone to come up here to plant these. I've got 2 food plots here combined. They're probably less than a half acre. Obviously there's issues that come with broadcasting seed to soil contact. The biggest thing probably is the seed predation with rodents and birds. And then, just the moisture issues. When you don't have that seed in the ground, or if it's not protected, and the ground's not holding that moisture, it takes longer for the seed to germinate. So I ran some experiments, first round test, nothing crazy by any means, but the results were what I expected. So again, I think this is very plausible, but there were a couple of things that I didn't expect that you might find interesting. So without further ado, as you can see, I've got 3 different pots here, and this test I ran with our rooted signature seed spring blend. So this is a blend that can be planted at 45 degrees soil temp, so you can get it in the ground real early. It's great for building biomass in your food plots, especially if you have low organic matter. But the big thing is getting it in there and creating some weed suppression, and then rolling that down later on and putting your fall crop in. Where we are here in the upper Midwest, you're probably not going to get 3 crops in by any means. If you're further south, you could do spring, summer, and then fall. But I digress. So this pot here is obviously noticeably more full and flush compared to this one, and then even compared to this one. Now, this experiment I actually ran a few weeks ago, and these have just been growing ever since. I'm getting to the point now where I have a pretty high seed rate in these pots, so it's actually getting to where the plants themselves are stressing the other plants. This center one here, this is the control. So I tried to simulate broadcasting this blend as much as possible. And what I did was I just took a handful of the blend, put it in the pot on top of the dirt, and then I took some hay, actually a bale of hay, took some of that and soaked it in water, and then put it on top to simulate a thatch layer. The reason I soaked it in the water was I didn't want that dry hay to pull all of the remaining moisture out of the soil. So I wanted to simulate that. Not perfect by any means, but again, we're just kind of going for a baseline here. So that was the control. Nothing special done to it. Laid down, thatch layer over the top. And then this one, I took roughly the same amount of seed, same blend, and what I did was I actually soaked it in water for 6 hours to kind of simulate, I'm gonna go broadcast, I'm gonna go plant my food plots this afternoon, so when I get up in the morning, I'm gonna throw that seed in a bucket of water, let it soak, and then when I get to the property, I go spread it. As you can see, this one has a lot more growth than this one. Again, we're already at a point where it's kind of outgrown its situation. One of those 6 soil health principles is understanding the context. Well, it's not really the right context to have this many seeds growing in this type of pot. So this one grew a lot faster. Exactly what I expected. It germinated significantly faster. days faster, and everything seemed to grow a lot faster once it took. Also, it seemed like the sunflowers and the peas and some of the other bigger seeds in that blend, those were the ones that actually germinated quite a bit faster. The grains in here, there's some oats and some barley and triticale. Those seem to germinate about the same time as the non-soaked seeds. I think they were a fair bit ahead, but these caught up pretty quickly. So that's not that big of a deal. But what I really noticed was that the peas and the sunflowers especially germinated quite a bit sooner than the non-soaked pot. Now this pot here, this was another test. This seed was actually soaked for 24 hours before I put it in there. And as you can see, it actually kind of stunted it a fair amount. Something to note, again, this is first round testing, but it's very plausible. Now, it's important to note also that it's not feasible to soak a 50-pound bag of a seed blend in water and then expect it to go through your broadcast spreader really easily. So don't go and do that and then get mad at me and say that, oh, Thomas suggested this and it was a major failure. This, when I do this, in my mind, it's a plot this size, one of these smaller plots. You're trying to do it with minimal or no equipment. And then I don't think there's any issue at all soaking that seed in water, draining that water off, and just scooping it out with your hands and chucking it. I mean, 90% of the time when I do small plots, I do them by hand, unless it's a really small seed. And the reason I do that is because I can control where that seed goes along the edges. I'm not kicking seed and wasting it into the woods or whatnot. So I think this is a very plausible hack to improve germination rates when broadcasting. I would still very much recommend broadcasting into a standing crop. So what we will do here, you can kind of see the rye coming back in this plot from last fall. And this was a pretty late planted food plot. I think I planted this towards the end of September. When this rye comes back and it matures, when that rye is standing, just reaching sexual maturity, the seeds are at the dough stage, then I'm going to go broadcast into that standing rye, and then I'm going to roll it down over the top with a roller crimper, or even just a yard roller, a modified yard roller. But you still want to try and target that window where the weather looks like there's some rain in the near forecast, because the longer that seed lays on the ground, the more likely something is to come along and eat it. And obviously there's plenty of wildlife. We want to encourage wildlife, right? We want as much life in our food plots as possible, and that means everything from small rodents to birds to obviously deer. So soak that seed roughly 6 hours. I'm not saying that's the sweet spot by any means, but it definitely shows to have an advantage over non-soaked seed. Soak the seed roughly 6 hours, broadcast it, cover it up with a thatch layer so it's protected, and do that right before rain, and I think you're going to have a lot more success. If you got something out of this video and you want to learn more stuff like this, please like and share, because there's going to be a lot more content like this coming along. I'm going to do everything I can to bring you guys and this channel along through my season. I consult and manage multiple hunting properties and work with everyone from hunters to landowners that just have a small residential property, all the way to farmers. So I'm always looking for ways. I've got a lot of perspectives. I've got a lot of experiments running. You know, we don't go full on experimental every time, but we run a lot of little tests, and we're always trying to learn and improve. So hit that like button, subscribe, and follow along for more content. Food plot season's right around the corner. If you're not thinking about food plots and having a summer cover crop, then you're missing the boat. You want to have a summer cover crop and prime that soil for your fall crop, instead of letting it get rank or stagnant and then constantly tilling and turning and or sterilizing the soil with herbicides. We can get away from that. We can definitely get away from that. And I'm going to show you how to do it this summer. So subscribe and get ready for food plot season.